A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Captain Mayank Verma from the flight deck. Welcome you on board Finding Your Ultra Flight. For the next 55 minutes or so, we have me and Vipin take you on this flight. Temperatures 24 degrees Celsius, beautiful evening. All of you strap in your seats for an excellent session today on Finding Your Ultra.
How long have you been flying?
18 years.
18 years?
1-8.
In your flying career so far, what has been, would you say, like the most difficult moment?
In my training days, we used to fly something called a cross-country flight. As luck would have it, I had a technical malfunction on board the aircraft in which I lost total electric supply to the aircraft. I reached the airport. I can make out that this should be the runway, but there are no lights. And I can't make an approach and landing. So that was the first incident where I realized, oh my god, aircraft are not that sophisticated after all. They can fail. 90% of a problem is your reaction to it.
How much do you wait for a passenger who's running late?
I think a lot of passengers don't understand, God knows why, is that
How do you keep fit?
I don't.
What are some of the pressures that pilots actually do deal with?
It is something which seems very glamorous because probably of the expensive aircraft or the shiny uniforms or whatever it is. But like most things in life, this coin has two sides.
Yeah. The other side is what we want to hear today. Right?
Let's talk about it.
Welcome back to the Find Your Ultra podcast. This conversation is with somebody who spent thousands of hours in the sky. First as a pilot in the forces and now as a commercial airline pilot. The life of a pilot has always fascinated me. In fact, the entire aviation industry has always fascinated me. It still feels like a miracle to watch a plane take off, cover thousands of miles and then land safely in another place. It's still nothing short of a miracle. Yeah, of course, science explains everything and we know. I just know. It just feels amazing. The life of people working in the aviation industry and pilots in particular has always fascinated me. So I wanted to have this conversation. I have Captain Mayank Verma to speak with today. And I enjoyed the conversation as much as I thought I would. I'm pretty sure you will too. And it's fascinating, like the number of decisions that they have to make so quickly and each decision having such major consequences. It's truly incredible. This conversation was recorded before the Air India plane crash that happened in Ahmedabad a few days ago. The tragic accident that took multiple lives, which is why it was recorded before that, so you'll not find any discussion about that accident. But we did touch upon safety aspects in airlines and the aviation industry, and I was assured by the captain that the safety standards are world class and they're rarely ever compromised on. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those who lost their lives. Such accidents are tragic. They're rare, and thankfully they're rare. Hopefully flying will continue to be as safe as it is. Anyway, this conversation has a lot more, so do enjoy. Without further ado, here's Captain Mayank Verma and me in the Find Your Ultra podcast. Indulge away. Captain Mayank Verma, welcome to the Find Your Ultra podcast.
Thank you, Vipin. Absolute pleasure being here.
Thank you so much for making time, and thank you so much for dealing with all the issues that we had.
Murphy's, which were at play today.
Law. Exactly. Everything
Par
that can go wrong did go wrong, from traffic to setup and equipment. Everything's just playing. Anyway, we're here, we're talking.
Yes.
And that's what matters.
Absolutely.
So, super looking forward. This is my first podcast. In fact, a first real long conversation with somebody from the aviation industry.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
आप पायलट हैं, आप जहाज उड़ाते हैं, तो हमें कुछ पता नहीं है उसके बारे में ज़्यादा. We only get to travel and see the passenger side of it. A captain's life really looks like a high-flying career. in literally, quite
ways.
Literally, of course. But काफी जलवा सा नजर आता है इसमें, right? There's like a lot of glitter.
There is.
Like, at least from the outside, that's what it looks like.
There is. Like you rightly said, it is something which seems very glamorous because probably of the expensive aircraft or the shiny uniforms or whatever it is. But like most things in life, this coin has two sides.
Yeah. The other side is what we want to hear today. Right?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's dig into it.
Great. So in the Find Your Ultra podcast, we do get to know the person a little bit. So just take us through your early years. Where were you born, raised, and what were they like?
All right. So I was born in a city called Kurukshetra. It's a real city.
Of
A lot of
course.
people get asked about the whole Mahabharat thing. It actually happened there. No, the soil is not red.
Yeah.
I get asked that a lot. But it's in Haryana, about 250 kilometers north of where we are sitting right now. Small city, beautiful. There's a lot of temples, about 365 temples is what they say in a single city. And small but beautiful place. And I was born there. My entire schooling was there. Right from primary school all the way to 12th class was in Kurukshetra. And after that,
What school was it?
Initially, it was a school called Bal Bhavan Public School, where I went till 5th class. And then there was a school called Agrasen Public School. It's also in the same city, of course. And that's where I did my 12th from. And after that, I started my flying career.
What age did you decide to do this, and what were the influences like?
Okay, so I would say that I decided it after I joined an engineering college.
Oh.
So yes, so I enrolled myself into an engineering college after 12 because the place where I'd come from, वहाँ दो ही बच्चे होते हैं. So there's either doctors or there's engineers.
Correct.
So parents ask you this question in 10th कि doctor बनना है या engineer बनना है.
Right.
The question means medical चाहिए या science चाहिए. So, and I, like most kids of my age, did not really think this through, that this is such a big step which is going to define the next coming 40, 50 years of my life. At that time, it's just about picking a subject. No, that defines what you do for the rest of your life. So I was interested in biology, but somehow I decided not to go ahead with it. And I joined the science stream and finished my 12th and then got enrolled in an engineering college, looking forward to really learning about the machines and something very exciting, something very new. Sadly, that didn't happen because I realized that this is something which I've already been doing in 11th and 12th, same mathematics, same physics, same numericals. I was like, this is not something I would want to sign up for. And that's not how I see my next 4 years. So I went up to my parents and told them that I want to be a pilot.
And what age would that be?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah, 16, 17, probably that age. Yeah,
Hmm.
not adult, not 18.
Right.
So, and their reaction was like, you want to be a what? I was like, a pilot. They were like, yeah, okay, fine, go study, finish your engineering. And then when you're done with this, dust settles, then you
Right.
can go ahead and pursue whatever you're talking about. So
When you said that, had you figured out the path?
I did. I did not just walk up to them because I knew they will be a little, they will be shocked to hear this because Kurukshetra mein, like I said, pilots nahi hote.
Yeah.
Doctors hote hain and engineers hote hain. So I did my research. I did a lot of research. I talked to a lot of people, and internet was not what it was back in those days, what it is now. Like you have this fantastic channels about podcasts and you can find whatever you want very easily. Back in the days, it was still struggling to get the correct
There
amount
was
of
no
information.
Captain Mayank Verma speaking on a podcast.
There were no Vipins making this ultra good for us.
Exactly.
So I did a lot of research and it did take a couple of attempts. I had to go back at them and saying, no, guys, just have a look. I've done this research. This is how the course works. This is how the airline works. This is what you do. And initially, they thought it's one of those teenage things that he's seen somewhere in a movie. Oh, looks cool. I want to do that. But later on, they realized that the amount of research I've done and with the conviction that I'm trying to convince them, it means something. So they said, okay, it's a big and bold step, very risky, because if things don't pan out if planned, I don't know what I would be doing.
Right.
So they said, okay, fine, go ahead, pursue your dreams. I was really lucky to have parents that supportive, that they would put their confidence behind the decision of a 17-year-old teenager. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
So to all the parents who are listening out to
Especially
this podcast,
in India, yes.
yeah, put some faith in your kids. That's very important. They're your kids. So it's part of you. Trust that. So that's where the aviation journey began from.
When you made the decision that this is what you want to do,
Yeah.
I've heard that to become a pilot, the process is very, very expensive.
It is. It is not expensive. It is exorbitant.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
What amounts are we looking at? कितना पैसा चाहिए था pilot बनने के लिए?
So I'll tell you back in, I'm talking about 2006. It used to cost somewhere around 30 lakh rupees. And
Now
that's a
that'll
lot
be
of
probably
money.
50?
That'll be probably about 60.
60?
60, yeah. Because everything is related. Like the travel costs have gone up, your stay has gone up, your food has gone up. Apart from the flying part, everything else has gone up. So now it's become very expensive. And earlier, back in those days, you could just do your flying, come back, apply to the airlines. Now, it doesn't work like that. You have to be something called type rated on the specific type of aircraft that you want to fly.
Okay.
So if you want to be a pilot today, I would say that have at least a crore, at least with you before you start this very expensive journey.
घर बिक जाएंगे लोगों के.
Bilkul, bilkul.
No, but honestly, like education actually is very expensive. Like anybody considering overseas education, even colleges in India charge exorbitant fees.
Yes.
But let's say somebody has 60 lakhs or whatever the amount needed, 70, 80 lakh. And they're good in maths.
Yeah.
And they've done their 12th,
Mm-hmm.
12th standard, right?
Yeah.
What else is needed to become a pilot? Or do they have all the boxes checked?
No, they do not. So first of all, mathematics was a prerequisite till this point. It was required, but now DGC has waived that regulation off.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Like
That means that you could be a commerce student and still be a pilot. Now.
Okay. Could you be like a biology student in 12th standard and
Absolutely.
still? Really?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So mathematics is not a prerequisite anymore.
Okay.
So that's one. So regarding the boxes, so we just think that money and wanting to do is all it takes.
Right.
But no, it's a lot of study. It's a lot of hard work, which a lot of people coming into this field are not prepared for, or they don't expect that. They feel ki we're going to come, we're going to wear a uniform, we're going to wear some sunglasses, going to pass on
The
some looks.
aviators.
Yeah, start the engines and go. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of hard work. You know how effortless that move seems? The pilot has. Yeah. So I always say this. To look effortless, there is a lot of effort. If you're doing something effortlessly, like you look at Sachin play, or you look Ritik dance, there's a lot of effort in that effortless move. So if you're coming into aviation, don't think that you're going to be just flying planes and chilling. No, it's a lot of studies, lot of exams, lot of hard work.
Yeah.
So you have to be really, really motivated to get through. So money is one part. Your education, of course, mathematics, like we said, is not required anymore. But a lot of motivation and conviction is required. You have to be persistent in your efforts.
How long is the whole process?
So it depends. A lot of people decide to go ahead and do their flying in India, which is maybe tad cheaper, maybe slightly cheaper, but longer. In an Indian institute, it probably takes about two years just for the flying part because of various challenges. If you do the same thing abroad, you can get done in about 9 months, realistically talking, 8 to 9 months. Yeah. If you pick up a country which does not snow much, or they're not too windy, or, conditions that limit your ability to fly.
Those conditions are not there in India, in most places, but you're saying that there are other challenges.
There are other challenges, right?
India-specific challenges.
India-specific challenges, exactly. So that there are a lot of bottlenecks. So it does take longer. So I would say it's better that you go out, fly, finish that in about 9 months, 10 months you can. Come back and then convert your license to an Indian license, and then you fly.
Okay. And what's the age? Like, is there an age limit within which you can do this?
No, there is no age limit as prescribed, as long as you're physically fit. You do retire after 65, your license is not renewed. That's the uppermost bracket.
Okay.
But apart from that, there's no age limit. Of course, airlines are a little reluctant to induct you because of your age.
Okay.
Some airlines have got an age requirement where they don't take candidates above 37. But let me tell you, Vipin, it's all about supply and demand.
Right.
Planes are coming in, airlines are expanding, they need pilots. So minute they need pilots, all rules go out the window.
Yeah. Except that you can fly a good plane.
Of course, that
safety,
stays.
Of course,
that stays. That's not going to change.
Right.
Yeah. But apart from that, the other rules are a little bit flexible. So we've had a captain who started his flying career at the age of 42.
And before that, what was he doing?
He was a ship captain.
Ship captain.
Yeah, but he was in Merchant Navy.
Merchant Navy,
yeah.
Okay.
So he said, no, I want to fly now. So he stopped doing that and gave his exams, and now he's flying with us.
And the regular Gurgaon corporate guy, pissed off with his job, wants to like change and fly. You think they can do that at the age of 40, whatever?
Absolutely. But again, conviction.
Conviction, of course, not going to be easy.
It can't be a 6-month fling, ki yaar kara nahi, maza aaya, let me go back. It doesn't work like that. If you have a net, if you have a safety net, you're going to fall.
But just thinking, a student who's, let's say, in their high school, or somebody who's just done 12th. So, वहाँ से हमारे पास जो options होते हैं, I think medical 5-7 साल तो उसमें भी लग ही जाता है यार. 7 years, right? To complete, you'll do your MBBS and then probably an MD or whatever. And then it's just beginning, right?
Yeah.
So, from that point of view, it's not all of that much time if things go as per plan.
The point is that doctors, we have a tremendous need of doctors, like we are the world's biggest population.
Right.
And we do fall sick. Everybody does. So we need doctors. So doctors are not going to go jobless as per my understanding.
Yeah.
And doctor doesn't need much. If you don't get a job anywhere, you can just put up a board saying, I'm a doctor, MBBS, and I'm going to have my clinic right here. I'm going to look at patients, treat them. A pilot can't do that. I can't sit in this chair and say, I'm a pilot, I'm going to fly out of this chair. No, I need $1 billion jet
Right.
and a lot of security clearances to do that. So as an IT guy, as a doctor, as an engineer, you don't need much to show your talent.
Are there any pilots that are sitting jobless right now?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Not a lot, I would not say, because the industry has expanded like anything. But there have been instances where people were waiting for a long time and then they developed some medical issue. Or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they were waiting, and then now they've developed some kind of medical issue and they're not fit to fly anymore.
So being fit to fly is definitely a condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, you've got to remain fit physically and mentally.
Yeah.
So that can like halt your career. But if you're a pilot and you're fit to fly, are there like dearth of jobs? Are there like not enough jobs?
No.
Right?
Not now.
You will
not in the current scenario. Back when I did it, back in 2008, it was bad. It was bad.
It was
Now,
not easy to find a job?
Not at all. Not at all. And now it is, things have changed a lot.
What are the backup passions then? Teaching? Is that one? Like people aspiring to become pilots?
You could, but in an industry which is drying well, I mean, I would ask my instructor, did you not get a job? And if you did not get a job, why am I taking these classes to become somebody like you who would still end up without a job?
Yeah.
But now with the airlines expanding, there are a lot of jobs for pilots. So anybody who's thinking of being a pilot now, it's an excellent time. You wouldn't have to worry about it. If you got the motivation and the money to fuel the dreams, it's a good time. It's the best time to become a pilot in India.
Lovely. How long have you been flying?
18 years.
18 years?
18, yeah. So I started flying when I was 18 years old.
That's a very relevant number. RCB just won IPL after 18 years.
Yeah.
And I think, was it Delhi police or Karnataka police or Mumbai? One of those, like one of the state police social media accounts actually took this opportunity and posted, Virat Kohli waited 18 years to win RCB, like the IPL Cup, and you can't even, like, you want to drive at the age of 14, wait for your license. I thought it was quite opportunistic. Right. And yeah, I mean, from a layman's point of view, from, let's say, a lay passenger's point of view, to us, the pilot's life looked like really sexy from outside, right? But I'm pretty sure you guys have your own pressures to deal with, and it's not just, you just get inside the cockpit and you rev up the engines and you're like, here we go, baby.
It is very sexy. Trust me.
Yeah, that pretty much definitely is. Like, having said that, I also, before I forget, I want to say this, like, this blows my mind. Aviation, like looking at an aircraft fly, sitting inside one, no matter how many times you've taken that flight, it just still blows my mind. It's a miracle. That's what it feels like.
You are saying that every time an aircraft is taking off or landing, all pilots will be like,
really?
This very day.
Wow.
We stop and look outside. How is this guy going to land?
Yeah.
We want to look at that landing. We'll stop walking or talking or with our phone and everybody's looking outside. It's that fascinating to us.
Wow.
18 years and it still fascinates me. Every time walking on the road, I hear an aircraft and I'm like, oh, nice. It is very fascinating.
How do you feel experiencing something on day-to-day basis, something that majority of the population of the world will never experience, which is being inside and taking that massive machine off?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
I wish I could define that in words, man. I have no words.
Try.
It's amazing. It's beyond exhilarating. It's unbelievable of the feeling, especially when you're in command of a jet that is weighing 90 tons now. Got 240, 50 people on board your aircraft. And the feeling of starting those engines or, putting that thrust to the takeoff position, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to this very day, it's the same feeling that I got 18 years back in a small trainer plane when we used to put the thrust for takeoff. Same feeling in this jet. Same. It's still the same.
Still the same.
Absolutely. Every day, every day it's very exciting.
Beautiful. And like as passengers, we also depend, like our lives actually are in your hands. Like doctor ke haath mein bhi hoti hai, pilot ke haath mein bhi hoti hai. Right.
Correct.
So of this sexy life, I'm pretty sure there's the other side as well, which is you operate under a lot of pressures is what we hear. What are some of the pressures that pilots actually do deal with?
So there is a lot of pressure. but ultimately it boils down to you, how much of it do you want to take?
Mm.
You know, you could be a very, very easygoing, chilled out guy. Like I like to keep my tempers and temperatures very low in cockpit.
Okay.
Okay. Thanda cockpit. That's what I call it, you know, literally and figuratively speaking. So there are things which are going to go wrong. You know, Murphy's Law that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It's going to have issues. Now, either you can react very hastily saying, oh my God, what is happening? This engine is failed. Yeah, it's okay. It's failed. Yeah. It was designed to fail someday. That you've been training for. That day is today.
Wow.
So it really boils down to how you look at it, something. So I read somewhere it said 90% of a problem is your reaction to it, how you react to it. And I didn't realize, I like, yeah, what stupid statement is that? But no, same problem, two people will react very differently to it. So it's how you react to a problem. That's what matters. So yes, but of course there are challenges in terms of, I think the biggest challenge is in terms of biocycle, the biorhythm of the body, because you're working at very odd hours.
But that goes true for the staff as well, like the air hostesses and flight stewards as well.
Right, it does. But I am not completely well versed with the challenges that cabin crew are facing, because I can't sit in my high chair and say, oh, iska kaam aasan hai, iska... No, I'm not saying that. All due respect, I don't know what challenges they are going through, but I can talk about the challenges that I'm feeling. That pilot's work is a lot of mental work. For the cabin crew, it's a lot of physical work. And not sleeping or being sleepy or foggy-headed clouds your judgment and the ability to think clearly.
Right.
Which is a threat.
Which is a threat.
Which is a big
Not
threat.
just to you.
Yeah. This biocycle, when you're not sleeping on time, the body is confused. It does not know when to sleep, when to wake up, when to be mentally alert, when your digestive system, that goes for a toss because you are eating at odd hours. Some day you're having breakfast at 2, some days you're having lunch at 5. So body clock is all over the place. Plus, when you're going international, you're crossing time zones.
Yeah.
So you're
that's taxing.
You're wondering what time of day it is. So those challenges are the other side, which I don't think many passengers think about. Then there are the obvious challenges, which I think passengers also see, like the weather, which has gone really bad. In past couple of days, we've seen how bad turbulence has become, how challenging the airspaces have become with the recent incident with Pakistan, airspace being closed. You're squeezed into narrow corridors, and if weather develops there.
Just let's talk about that only. So, abhi Operation Sindoor hua.
Yeah.
Around that time, the Pakistani airspace was closed.
Yeah.
How did that impact directly like a pilot's life? Or
so I'll tell you, I was in Dubai when we heard about the Pahalgam attacks happened, and then we flew out to Dubai. And we operated out of there. We had some couple of flights. And last flight, I was coming from Dubai to Delhi. And our flight was planned over Pakistan's airspace. And by that time, tensions had really mounted between India and Pakistan. That's what we were going through the news channels because, of course, every citizen is very concerned with what's happening. All these war drills and everything had started by then. So I called up the company and I said, hey, this is what my flight plan looks like. And I don't think it's safe. So then they're like, hold on. Then he checks his system. Like, I don't have an advisory saying that you can't fly, or I don't have anything in my system that prohibits you from going. So I suggest, Captain, you go ahead. I was like, fine. The advisory is not there probably in the system, but it's common sense. You know that. You know what's going on. The system doesn't know.
Yeah.
But you know the geopolitical tensions. So I really think that it is not a good idea to fly over Pakistan. Let's take some time, redesign the flight plan, and avoid this airspace. So they're like, okay, give us some time. They did the changes. I got a flight plan. And we avoided Pakistan, the airspace entirely that night. Now, it did add about 20-25 minutes of flight time.
Okay.
But I don't think passengers or anybody else minds that in the long run.
Yeah.
When I landed in India, next morning, Pakistan shut down its airspace.
Yeah. Good call. Good call then.
So sometimes common sense, good sense prevails, and you're able to take these decisions because you have to be very aware as a captain. You're leading the whole flight. It's not just about my aircraft or what is the weather here and there. You've got to be situationally very aware of what's happening.
So weekly, what's the number of hours you are actually flying, and what's the number of hours you have to spend in the office doing other stuff, and what is that other stuff?
Oh yeah, good question. Because the number of flight hours that we are actually flying is far less than the amount we are actually spending in trying to do that job.
Okay.
So that is, we are limited to 35 hours a week, about 100 hours a month.
Of flying?
Of actual flying.
Isn't that supposed to be like a full-time job in itself? 35 to 40 hours?
That is a lot of work, because to fly 35 hours, you need at least 80, 90 hours of, work to be put
Wow.
behind it. Because you've seen the travel times of the traffic.
Yeah.
Then you got your reporting times, which are at least 60 minutes, if not 75 minutes in some flights.
Yeah.
And then you have a plethora of work which you're trying to finish even after the flight. So it is a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. मतलब flight का time हो रहा है, captain late है. मतलब
It has
ऐसा
happened.
भी होता है.
It has happened.
does?
Yeah, it does happen. There are some crazy days when you have some vehicle breaking down, or there are storms in which trees fall, so the highway is blocked. And I called up the company saying, "Hey, I'm stuck for the last 1 hour and I can't make it." They're like, "Okay, there's nothing we can do."
So
about
then what
it."
happens?
The flight gets delayed. Just too bad. It happens.
What gets communicated to the passengers?
A lot of times when these things happen, it'll not be a case where only the pilot doesn't reach. A lot of passengers would not reach either, because the whole road is blocked, right? So actually it makes a lot of sense, and the passengers are really happy. They're like, "Oh, we were trying to make it, but there was so much jam." They're like, "Relax, the flight is delayed." Then they're like, "Thank God."
Yeah. And I don't know about what the norms are, but I guess it depends on airline to airline as well. How much do you wait for a passenger who's running late? I think the boarding gates close, 25 minutes before?
Yeah, that's the ultimate.
But उसके
yeah.
बाद भी अगर कुछ आते हैं passengers, कभी-कभी allow कर दिया जाता है.
It depends. Lot of factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just reminds me of an incident. I was flying from Heathrow to here and to Delhi, and I was just having drinks with a friend. Thought I'm done with everything, and I just have to do security check and then I'm done. So security check karvaya, and we were late. But I was just like enjoying it so much with a friend. I was like delaying it to the last minute, and I did delay it so much that when I passed the security, I realized I'm actually late for boarding. And I realized, I think gate number 49 ya kuch tha, and I was probably at 2, very far off. And then I was just running, and then as I approached the boarding gates, I saw a couple of people running towards me, and I was like, Vipin Sharma, yes. Okay, एक ने मेरा ये suitcase लिया, एक ने दूसरा वाला लिया, and they ran with
pushed
me.
you into the aircraft.
Like, yeah, and then this was in London, so I was like, it was cold, it was freezing. And I got into the flight all sweaty, and I'm sitting next to a passenger who's Britishers, right? So उनका अलग ही sense of humor होता है. And I'm telling him, "Oh, so you were the one who had held up the flight." I was like, "Maybe, but I was stuck in traffic." And he gave me a look that was like, "I just don't believe you." Then I said, "No, I was having beer with a friend." He said, "Oh, that's all right then."
Then it's
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So it was
Justified.
great. I mean, yeah, just a random detour. Anyway,
Nice.
so yeah, your experiences with the flight delays and stuff.
Yeah. So one thing I don't think a lot of passengers don't understand, God knows why, is that I want to go back home too. I'm not enjoying the delay. If I had it my way, we would already be home. I have no intentions of, spending my life at the airport. So I don't know why passengers start blaming the cabin crew or the pilot for the delays. I think it'll be really nice if the passengers understood that delays bother us as much as they bother you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of them are just unforeseen, and you can't do much about them.
A lot of times we try our best to cut down on delays. Like if there is something I can do from my end as a captain to expedite the flight or push it through, I will do it. Of course, within the realms of the safety.
Of course. Okay, great. In your flying career so far, what has been, would you say, like the most difficult moment that like really challenged you?
Oh, well, it'll be hard to pick one, because when you
can hear
in that,
2 or 3.
Yeah. So when you're in that seat, it feels that this is the most difficult moment that you've seen. So it started right back off in my training days. We used to fly something called a cross-country flight, in which you're supposed to go a certain amount of distance away from your base airfield. And then only it is termed as a cross-country flight, a certain number of nautical miles away from your base airfield. So we used to fly this solo. We take our own aircraft and go and fly. And I used to love flying in the evenings, when it was cooler, there was less traffic in the air. It was nicer to fly. So
traffic in the air.
Oh, there is. That's
traffic,
a real thing, man. Look at why so many delays at Delhi and Mumbai.
Of course.
It's traffic in the air. Airspace is clogged up. So I took off on this flight, and as luck would have it, I had a technical malfunction on board the aircraft, in which I lost total electric supply to the aircraft.
Wow.
There was no electricity. So that means there were no lights, and there were no radios. And there was no navigation instruments, like the GPS lost power. But That's fine. We have conventional instruments to navigate.
Really?
But yeah.
And what happens when GPS gets lost?
So there are other aids on which we rely. It's something called a VOR. Back in those days, we used to do that. You rely on VOR navigation. So that still works, but you have no radios. So you can't tell anybody where you are or when are you coming to land or what runway you're going to be on. Nobody can see you because no lights and nobody can hear you because no radios.
You're not going to like shout, "Ke hट जाओ भैया, land करना है."
Exactly. And that was solo flight. I was all by myself. And in US, you got something called a PCL, pilot control lighting.
Mhm.
You can use the electric system of the aircraft to switch on runway lights.
Acha.
But if you don't have power on board, you can't switch it on. So
What plane was it?
it was a Cessna. It was a Cessna 152.
What's that?
It is a single engine, two-seater aircraft.
Okay.
What
Like
we use
the-
for training. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's a very small aircraft. So I reached the airport and I'm circling over at the airport trying to figure out where the other guys are, what the traffic pattern is, if anybody taking off or landing. And I can make out that this should be the runway, but there are no lights. And I can't make an approach and landing without the runway lights being there because I have no lights on my aircraft. So I was just waiting. Hopefully somebody shows up, and somebody did. Somebody switched on the lights and I saw their aircraft. They landed. And then I said, this is my chance because it's set to a timer. So after a certain amount of time, the lights switch off by themselves and then somebody again has to turn it on, which nobody will because nobody knows I'm up here.
Right.
So the minute that guy landed, I made my move.
What?
Came, I was like, this is the only window. If I don't land,
Almost tailgating him.
from a certain distance, because I don't know if there are going to be other guys, you know. So watching all that, I started my approach, came in, and the minute I was just crossing the runway threshold, all lights went off. So, but I could manage to land safely. So that was the first incident where I realized, oh my God, aircraft are not that sophisticated after all. They can fail. I mean, later on, the maturity growth. Initially, you feel so immune inside an aircraft. I'm like, this is an aircraft. It doesn't fail. Things don't fail here. I was like, no, that was my first jolt. No, things are gonna go wrong. It's a machine. Space shuttles fail, man. So I
Yeah.
mean, so I was like, boss, this is real.
Exactly, dude. And like air crash investigation, जिसने देख रखा हो उसका तो वैसे ही बहुत दिमाग खराब हो रहा
Absolutely.
है.
So
But
then,
you watched all of it, air crash investigation.
most of them, yeah, and it's very good. It's very good, but you can learn a lot. Like line pilots can learn a lot of things from that. A lot of things. Another thing that happened was one of the training flights. We on a multi-engine aircraft. There's a exercise called single engine flying, where you shut down one of the engines, you fly around the aircraft on a single engine, you do some maneuvers, and after that you relight that engine, start it again, and then you come and land back normally. On this day, I was flying out of Arizona where temperatures run 45, 46 degrees Celsius in summers. And I was flying a Piper Seneca PA-34. You can put a photograph like
Okay.
that's what it looks like. So we shut down one of the engines, and these are Continental 360 engines. They are 360. They're air-cooled engines. And the air is already very hot. So once you shut them down, they can be really difficult to start sometimes. Some days. This was one of those days. So when we tried to relight the engine, it just won't start. And because of how hot it was that day, the aircraft was not able to sustain flight on a single engine.
Damn.
So slowly,
you were losing
we were
altitude?
coming down. Yeah, we were
Oof.
running out of time because one engine is not able to sustain flight. So we did multiple attempts to start the engine and we could not. Ultimately, we had to declare an emergency. We called them a mayday that we are going down. So-and-so is the position and we're likely to reach so-and-so position. So this is my nearest airfield. And when we declare that, then it says, say your position again. And we tell them the position, silence. Absolute silence. He doesn't respond back. So me and the other guy looking at each other like, did he hear us? 10 seconds later, he comes back on RT and says, there are 3 airfields, Goodyear, Glendale, and Deer Valley, close to where we were flying.
Right.
So he comes back on RT and says, Glendale, Goodyear, Deer Valley, all runways clear to land.
Lovely.
In 10 seconds, that was the coordination that was done. This is something about US, the value of human life
Yeah.
is very, very high. I mean, they will move mountains to save one human life, literally. All the administrative red tape, all the procedures, all the rules, everything will go out the window to make way for a human life. I think that is something that we can really learn. So we kept on coming. Goodyear was the closest, so we tried to make approach towards Goodyear. and continuously trying. And then after a point, we realized that this engine is not going to start. Let's just try to land this thing on one engine. So we're doing our best to come and land on one engine. Then I'm like, let me try one more time if it works. I mean, we've done all the checklists. We are through runways in front of us. Most likely we'll make it, but let's just try. And I did, and it did start.
Okay.
As luck would have it. So the lesson learned is do not stop trying no matter what. Till last minute, till last breath, keep on trying. So we tried, the engine started, we were on both engines and we got some altitude. We went and landed at our base airfield. And that's that. So when you are in that position, it does feel that, wow, this is tricky.
Fascinating.
So you forget about the older thing and you can only focus on the emergency that you're having right now.
Absolutely. And every day is a new day.
Every day is a new day.
Presents its own challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then it just went on. I've had a fire and smoke on board the aircraft.
What?
Yeah. And
Passenger aircraft?
No, this was back in the military days.
Okay.
When we took off, and it was takeoff before dawn. So we were taking off at night. And we could smell something which is weird. You know, all the lights are off. And these are not very new aircraft which had got a lot of sensors which will tell you what's going on. You could smell something is not right. And the minute we turn on the lights, we see the entire cabin is filled with smoke. There's a lot of smoke.
Wow.
One of the radar instruments had caught fire. And those aircraft are not as sophisticated as the ones we are flying in. So they don't have all these sensors built into them. So we just had a manual fire extinguisher and visual nose and eyes to, you know, see where the smoke is coming from. That also took us by surprise. And especially this is happening at 3, 4 in the morning where your brain is already so foggy. But luckily we were not very far away from our base airfield. So we turned around, landed back. We were very heavy, a lot of fuel.
Yeah. This fuel thing, I heard from you for the first time. I wasn't aware of it. When medical emergencies happen or somebody on the aircraft has a problem or for some reason you're required to turn back.
Yeah.
You told me that that's not easy.
It's not easy. So recently I had an incident on board a flight to Pune from Delhi where after takeoff, my cabin crew, she called me and said that, Captain, we have a situation. I was like, yeah, just what I wanted. Tell me. So then she says that there's a lady who's complaining of chest pain and she does not look good. And we have a doctor who's looking at her, but I think you should know this. Now, that was a very good call because that moment only we started preparing and looking at our options. Then she came back. She told us that the doctor says it's not advisable and we should land as soon as we can.
What?
So that minute, we had already worked out our options. We decided Delhi was the closest and the best suited option for us. So we told Delhi we are coming back. So when you do something like this, it's something which is not planned, right? He's got his departures planned one after another and he's not expecting an aircraft to turn back midair and then come back hurtling towards it. Also, like we were talking about the fuel, we are very heavy. There's way too much of fuel. So when we take off from an airfield, I could be much heavier than what my landing weight is going to be because I expect this fuel is going to be burnt throughout the flight. And then I'm going to be in the landing weight to land at the airfield. Now, in this case, you're too heavy to land. And the aircraft that I'm flying with is not designed to dump fuel. Some aircraft can do that.
Okay.
The one that I'm flying.
What happens when you dump fuel? It just falls.
Yeah, so it is vaporized in like a very fine jet spray.
Okay.
And but it's still fuel. It's still very dangerous. So you got designated dumping areas.
Oh.
Like you can't go. Like there's a Delta flight which dumped fuel over a school in US and that became a huge thing. Yeah, because they didn't realize it's a school. There was nothing demarcated on the maps. And the ATC allowed them to do it in that spot. But anyway, so this aircraft does not have the capability to dump fuel. So you have to do something which is called an overweight landing. So the aircraft is not designed to land this heavy, but because somebody is dying, you got a medical emergency on board. You have to apply extended procedures. You need much more runway to land now. There are more complicated procedures. That's what we are trained for. That's job. Luckily, she survived. I was very happy.
Oh,
we got to know that later. Yeah. So it's good. Feels good.
That's so nice
to do your job right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
lovely.
days.
Yes.
Some days.
Lovely. Did they thank you later?
She did not actually. If you're watching this, you
exactly.
Then that's fine.
What does a day in the life of a pilot look like?
So the life of a pilot, it begins with an email that is your flight document. You have all your details regarding the flight, what aircraft you're going to be flying with, how much passengers, how much cargo, how much fuel, where are you going, what airfield, what is the weather like there, all those details. Then you go to the dispatch, you do a pre-flight breath analyzer exam. So before every flight, every pilot, every cabin crew is tested for any alcohol that they might have consumed. Once that test is done, you have a briefing. I usually have a briefing with my first officer initially, and then we brief the cabin crew together. And then all of us walk out the aircraft, whatever gate that is parked at. And then we get started setting up the aircraft. So it takes us about 20-25 minutes to set up the whole aircraft and finish our pre-flight briefing and everything, run all the checklists. And that is also roughly the time it takes for the aircraft to get cleaned and all the passengers to board and all their cargo to get on board the aircraft. And once everybody's on board, we push back, commence our departure, and that's it.
What about testing for other drugs?
There is policies that we have come out now. They are testing for psychotropic substances, which are random tests.
Opioids and everything.
Everything. So those are blood tests. So that can be done at any point of time.
So they do that randomly?
Randomly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions.
Yeah.
So when you're...
So if you're thinking of being a pilot, stop it.
Yeah, exactly. When you're readying the aircraft, what sort of challenges, like have there been, I'm pretty sure in 18 years long career, you would have had moments where the aircraft is actually not ready.
Yeah.
What sort of problems do you face there?
So there are certain things, like we have said, that machines, they do have issues. So sometimes a lot of systems in the aircraft are not working. But to maintain the same levels of safety, you have a walk around. Okay? So you have to work around that system. So there are multiple procedures that you have to follow in addition to the normal procedures.
Yeah.
So that kind of lengthens your cockpit preparation, or the amount of briefing that you have to carry, or the amount of things you have to remember. Oh shit, when we start taxiing, we have to do this, or when we're starting the second engine, we have to do that. So that kind of adds to your workload. But like I said, that's what makes it fun. That's what.
No, but I'm
makes the
so glad
monotony.
that at least the guidelines are so tight.
Oh, they are
when it
very
comes to
rigid. They are
flying.
very rigid. People might
Yeah.
feel that it is
Like
very.
in India, you can't trust all of these. Like, for example, when we go to the, let's say,
Yeah, rides.
and stuff, and you have your kids and family who want to take a ride. I'm like shit scared of taking
I
these
never do
rides
that.
in
I
India.
never do that.
In India in particular, because just so there are no procedures to be followed. कोई set maintenance का कोई schedule नहीं है. वो वाला नट उसने टाइट नहीं किया. वो छुट्टी पे गया हुआ था. उसको बोला था और हो गया काम.
Thank you.
There's a big accident.
That's unregulated.
Right? Yeah, and that's how cheap life in India is.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that at least the DGCA and all these guidelines are like really and
strict.
the international standard, of course.
Yeah.
And I guess they have to be because international people are involved as well, right?
Absolutely. There's a lot of certification. There's a lot of approvals which you would lose in case something goes unchecked.
Right.
And they're very heavy penalties,
Mm.
obviously, in terms of monetary as well as what is the cost of somebody's blood on your hands, man.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that the aircraft. So there are going to be problems. Sometimes aircraft things are not working, but it's very safe. It's always very safe. Never have I gone in an aircraft in 18 years and felt that, this is unsafe to fly. Obviously, there'll be more checklists, there'll be more procedures, they need things to be careful, but never unsafe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the other emergencies that you may have faced in these 18 years.
Yeah, so there was an emergency where, like I told you, the current aircraft that I'm flying does not have the ability to dump fuel. The one that I was flying before this was a military aircraft, and that could dump fuel. So the problem with that is that one of these flights, we started to dump fuel when we did not command to, and we started leaking fuel.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was inadvertent operation of that fuel valve, and we couldn't stop it. So the fuel was gushing out when actually we needed fuel to land back safely. So I would again thank my stars that we were close enough to an airfield that even with the fuel gushing out, we were able to come and land back. But again, the challenge was that still we were heavy on the load despite the fuel gushing out. And this is a very peculiar emergencies because you never expect an aircraft. You expect an aircraft to be coming with fire on, but you don't expect an aircraft to be coming leaking of fuel. So those are the times we told the fire tenders and the crash base to stay away from the aircraft. Usually the fire brigades, they start following the aircraft minute it touches down because they don't know where it's going to stop.
Right.
So they're following you, and the minute you run off the runway or you stop, they start spraying foam on you. But in this case, because we are leaking so much fuel, I told them to stay away and do not come close to the aircraft till we shut down our engines because there's puddles and puddles of fuel. So no matter how much you train or how much you study, the first instance of an emergency will take you by surprise, and it will never be textbook. It'll never be textbook emergency.
Yeah.
Like in the military, we have a saying that 99% of military plans will not survive the first enemy contact. The first time emergency hits, 99% of what you thought will happen will go out the window.
Yeah.
So many times, even now, we are faced with challenges that we've never seen in a simulator.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the minute you get
Wow.
punched in the face, you're like, oh shit, now I got to improvise.
Yeah.
Now, this is what it is. Now, make the most of it. So, that's how it works.
Fabulous. So that's actually a good segue into your military life. We haven't talked about that at all. Talk to us about it. What was it like and how is it different from...
It's very different. It's two worlds. Both have an aviation arm. Both are connected to aviation. Both fly planes, but they are totally two different worlds. And each has, like I said in the beginning, pros and cons. Both worlds are beautiful. And I was with the forces for about 8 years. And that was a very different life.
That's how you started?
That's how I started my career with the forces. And there was a lot of things that we
How
didn't
did you
expect.
join? Well, let's
So,
also learn.
like I told you, back in 2007-8, I came back to India in 2008, did my conversion of the license, and no airlines were hiring at that time. And that time, Indian Coast Guard came out with a vacancy for CPL holders. They were looking for pilots to fly their planes. And we are extremely lucky, and I'm grateful to the service that they gave me a chance. They selected me, and I was commissioned officer of the forces by the time I was 20. So it was very young, yeah. So we started flying, and it was tough. The training was tough. Initially, there were a lot of issues, and you have that self-doubt like, "Arey yaar, main kahan aa gaya?" But to this very day, I miss the forces each and every day, and it was a beautiful journey. Even now, you see this. This is from the forces. This coaster is from forces.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful.
It's close to your heart.
Yeah. So initially, though, there's officers cadres and there's non-commissioned. So one of the non-commissioned, very senior guys, मासाब कहते हैं. So he told us कि साहब फौज में काम कुछ नहीं होगा, लेकिन वक्त नहीं मिलेगा. तो ये thinking, कह रहे आपको बेइज्जती बहुत होगी, लेकिन इज्जत बहुत मिलेगी. So as we went on to service, we realized these anecdotes, what they make sense, because there's so much work that you were never free, because defense doesn't only teach you to fly an aircraft. They teach you how to fire a plethora of weapons. Right from a 9mm all the way to a Carl Gustav rocket launcher, everything, the works. You can do financial audits. You can organize a party in 30 minutes. You can... you do parade, you do drills, you do so much of liaising with the civil bodies, so much you're not trained for, and you just have to improvise. Wow. So this experience also helps you in that emergency scenario where you think you have to think off your feet. I mean, come on, this is what it is, and I have to deal with it. So the forces prepare you with that kind of mindset. Even in the forces, the flight training is very different. So there's a lot of physical part of the training. I mean, you get hurt a lot physically.
Yeah.
You know, get literally punched in the face a lot of times by instructor.
Okay.
You know, in the training aircraft, somebody put a placard, they put a sticker there saying, please clean your blood after the flight.
Wow.
And it was so scary. People used to look at it like, what? Like,
no, but what kind of combat sports are happening inside of an aircraft?
You get punched in the face by an instructor.
What for?
For this tiniest mistake that you might say.
Okay, just the manners of doing it are very different.
Absolutely. And initially, it really hurts your ego. It breaks you down like, why is this happening? And but later on, years down the line, you realize because there was so much pressure, they'll simulate a fire in the engine. He's shouting at you.
Wow.
It's very hot. You're wearing a very heavy 3 kgs, 6 kgs of May vest. You got headsets on. He's sweating. And he's shouting on you, you're controlling the aircraft, he's hitting you, everything going out the window, and still you're controlling the aircraft. So the day it actually happens, actually you lose an engine, you're so relaxed. They're like, kya ho gaya? Engine hi gaya na? Nobody's shouting at me, nobody's hitting me in the face, I'm not bleeding.
Wow.
Relax, it's an engine, man. We'll take care of it. So you fall back to that training. That now I realize that was the whole point, that there was so much of pressure that they built, that if you can perform under that kind of pressure, the day you actually have an emergency, you'll be like all cool about it. Like, theek hai na, it's okay. Nobody's hitting us. Nobody's, giving us the black eye.
Amazing.
So we can deal with it. So,
I get the chills hearing that.
Yeah, that's how military aviation works. And just to say how different it is, in civil, you can't apparently say a few words or raise your voice, which is considered conduct which is not acceptable.
Raise your
and
voice also inside the cockpit?
a certain level. Beyond that, people might not feel very comfortable, even in training.
Hmm.
So then training is like, this is negative training. I mean, I'm sure they have their own viewpoints of training. I'm just saying that two things are very different. They have
No,
a
I'm
very
sure it's
different
based on
strategy.
psychology and
And the mission requirement.
yeah.
Forces have a very different mission requirement. The Civil
Exactly.
airlines have a very different
Yeah,
mission
yeah. आप
requirements.
पाकिस्तान में पकड़े जा सकते हो. Like your flight gets hijacked or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and all these things happen.
Yeah, there's a joke now. There's one of the pilots who caught behind the enemy lines, and enemy caught him and bashed him really bad. But he didn't open his mouth. He didn't say one word. And later on, he was applauded. He was like, "What a warrior, man!" So they got him back. Then there was a function in the auditorium where he was supposed to be keynote speaker and tell us about your experiences, about how it happened. So he spoke, and baad mein at the tea he said, "Sir, what is one thing you'd like to say?" So he said, "Bhai, पढ़ाई कर लो, बहुत मारते हैं वो लोग."
Brilliant.
Oh yeah, so that kind of wit. But on a serious note, like we said, there are very different mission requirements. It's totally different what you need in civil and what you need in military. But military was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun flying. We used to fire from our aircraft. We had guns in the aircraft which we used to fire with. And we were talking about the feeling of having thrust levers under your arm. Oh man, wait till you get a trigger in your finger on an aircraft. It's unreal. It's very nice.
Very different kinds of
Very,
thrills and
very
then
different
combine the
kinds.
two.
Absolutely. We used to do formation flying. We used to do low flying. We used to do VIP missions, medical evacuations, test flying. We used to do a lot of test flying where the aircraft has to be tested by a test pilot. That was me, to see if the aircraft is fit enough to be flown by normal pilots.
Really?
Yeah. So
you become a guinea pig.
a quite prestigious one, I would say.
Yeah.
Because if you're a test pilot, you have the ultimate word. You say what works and what doesn't work. And it's really prestigious to be a test pilot. So when you test the aircraft, you push it beyond the limits of what it is normally designed, and you see how the aircraft reacts, and then you certify whether it's fit to fly or it's not fit to fly.
I see. I thought it's a regular flight that you take. No. So you test it to its limits. Wow.
Sometimes beyond it. Yeah, because it's coming out of a major line maintenance. So you don't know how the engines are working, how the airframe has been adjusted. Is it handling the way
much
it's supposed
higher
to?
risk.
Always, yes. Yes. But I think in the forces, the amount of thrill always overrides the amount of risk. You know, that's how we thought. You rarely think about the risks. You just think about the mission outcome and what you need to do in order to get the job done. That's what you focus on.
When did you transition to commercial airlines? Like,
so about 8 years there. In 2017,
why did you?
I was a short service commission officer. So I was due to retire with the services anyway.
Okay.
And the heavy heart, I let go. And started.
Could you not have continued in any different capacities?
I could have for some time. It was extendable to certain number of years after that, 10 years and then 14 years. But beyond 14 years, I had to retire anyways. So I thought, if you have to leave anyway, why not leave sooner and start your career here? So that's okay. But yeah, I miss that kind of flying a lot. A lot of adventurous flying. Here, it's very structured. It's very rigid. So that's different.
Superb. And you've also mentioned it is challenging, like the body clock in particular.
Oh, yes.
Like nutrition, your fitness, everything just suffers a lot. How do you keep fit? How do you manage? How do you maintain your
How do I
balance
keep
there?
fit? I don't. I wish I was working more towards that goal. But it has a lot to do with very small steps, like as small as avoiding sugar. Now that may seem something very small, but that's something which is a very small step with very big positive changes to your life. So no matter how much amount of time you have, how little time you have, try to be regular with some amount of physical activity, whether you take a walk, whether you go for a run, whether you do 10-minute or 5-minute workout. Be consistent. That is what is important. And really watch out what you eat, what you don't. Yeah. Because you go on these hotels with this fabulous buffet, desert counter and all. Stay away from that, man.
Yeah. Lovely. How do you maintain like a work-life balance? How difficult or easy is that for a pilot?
It really depends on the person. I've seen people really struggling in the same scenario, and some people just take it very easy and they're very okay with it. I think the key lies in not.
What kind are you?
I'm very easygoing because I feel that forge changes you. You know, you are ready for anything. You become very adaptable to the scenario around you. a lot of people struggle because they have tendency to complain a lot, which I don't think helps. It is what it is. So make the most of it and don't have that sense of entitlement. You know, this is how I want it. This is how it should be. No, man. This is what you got served.
But aren't people in the forces, of course, they're trained for many emergency situations, but aren't they the ones also who are very hung up about this is how things are meant to be, like be so regimented about things?
Correct. So they are very regimented about the procedures, about how something is supposed to be
inputs and not the outputs so much.
Right. If a gun has to be cleaned in a certain way, it has to be cleaned a certain way. If a checklist has to be run a certain way, it has to be run a certain way. Now you can change that last minute ki nahi, ye flight, you don't go to Bangalore, you go to Abu Dhabi. So you can't be rigid about that. But when you are preparing the cockpit for Abu Dhabi flight, the checklist has to be done in a very rigid way. You have to be rigid there. So that is something you should know when to be rigid and when to be flexible. That's a very important point, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. Talking to you is just so wonderful. I hear bad things about pilots as well, that they're very arrogant. We see that in the movies as well, that they're very arrogant and they talk to like the other staff in a very condescending manner. Or wo sab hota hai. I'm not even sure how much of that is actually true.
Yes, I've seen that. I have seen that. But on that note, I have seen those kind of people in every profession. I have seen very arrogant doctors who will not talk to their patients properly. And I've seen doctors who are very nice. They'll keep on listening to what the old man is saying and then they'll say, okay, main samajh gaya, aap ye kar lijiye. So there are all kinds of people in all professions. And I don't think arrogance is required to do your job right. You know, you can be straightforward about it. Like, we are doing it like this. But you don't have to go be arrogant or go out of the way to insult somebody else. I don't see the need for that. But then again, I think it's more of the nature of the individual person rather than the profession.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Lovely. What a beautiful conversation this has been. And especially with somebody who's actually not from my fraternity, like the ultra running fraternity. But yeah, great to have this. The podcast is called Find Your Ultra. Please tell people what's your way. What would you say? How can people go about finding their ultra?
Focus, belief, hard work. So these three things have no substitute. Okay? And if you work hard in the right direction, the right way, I'm sure that anybody and everybody can find their ultra, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever
you dream of. Whatever.
Absolutely. Whether it's being a pilot, whether it's being an athlete, being somebody who's an excellent runner like you, having an excellent podcast like this is. So whatever it is, it requires a lot of hard work. There is really no shortcut to that. Like I said, it takes a lot of effort in being effortless. I think that is what it is.
Lovely. Captain, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.